Hello, this is Seal Barber looking at civil rights. Today we're going to be looking at the Freedom Summer and the Mississippi murders. Hopefully, by the end of this presentation, you should be able to know why the Freedom Summer was organised and why Mississippi was chosen, to be able to state who organised the Freedom Summer and the key features of it, and to analyse the impact of the Mississippi murders. So, pre-1962, there had been many civil rights events and campaigns. There had been the Montgomery bus boycott, followed by the Freedom Rides, Brown versus Board of Education 1 and 2, followed by Little Rock, and the Greensboro sit-ins. However, 1962 had seen a letdown with the Albany movement, which had proved a failure. However, in 1963, there had been successful civil rights action, with the media attraction caused by the Birmingham campaign, followed by the success of the March on Washington, which culminated in Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. There was a great deal of hope. After the march, Martin Luther King and other civil rights leaders met with President Kennedy to discuss civil rights legislation. Despite the support of the president, in the latter half of 1963 the civil rights movement stalled. In November, Kennedy's civil rights bill went through the first stages, but then Kennedy was assassinated and many lost hope. After the high point of the March on Washington, due to the assassination of Kennedy, there was a lag in the movement. So to keep the momentum of the civil rights movement going, they organised the Freedom Summer in the June of 1964. The aim of the Freedom Summer was to increase the number of registered African American voters in Mississippi. Not only was this the place where Emmett Till had been brutally murdered and the perpetrators freed, it was also the place in America which had the lowest number of African Americans registered to vote in America. So just as the March on Washington, it was a number of civil rights groups who were responsible for organising the Freedom Summer. These included the Congress of Racial Equality, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and the National Association for the Advancement of Coloured People. These acted together in forming the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, or the MFDP for short. So, they achieved quite a lot. There were more than 80,000 members. They also established more than 30 freedom schools in towns throughout Mississippi to address inequality in Mississippi's education system. Volunteers from across the USA taught in the schools. The curriculum included black history and the philosophy of the civil rights movement. It is thought that over 3,000 students attended these schools that summer, and almost 70,000 by the end of the year. As a result, white racists and supremacists targeted these schools by bombing and assaulting them, sometimes even being carried out by the police. More than 30 churches were bombed. However, the Freedom Summer became really notorious for the murder of 3 of the project's volunteers. These were James Chaney and his 2 white colleagues, Andrew Goodman and Michael Schwerner. On the 21st of June 1964, James Chaney, Andrew Goodman and Michael Schwerner were arrested whilst they were investigating a church bombing which had been committed by white supremacists. The police took them into custody, accusing them of traffic offences. However, the policemen were actually members of the KKK. All 3 were held for several hours, but they were eventually released by the police. However, they were never seen again. The police officer had informed his friends in the Klan of the arrests, and from that point, they began to plan the murders. It wasn't until 6 weeks later that 3 badly decomposed bodies were found under a nearby dam. Goodman and Schwerner had both been shot in the chest, while Chaney, the African American, had been severely beaten and then shot. Finally, 18 people were arrested, 7 men were convicted, but no one served more than 6 years for this crime. As a result of these events, the civil rights movement gained support, and President Johnson, who came to power after President Kennedy's assassination, was firm in his determination to find the murderers. Ironically, at the height of this crisis, Johnson signed the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Some of the black members of the Freedom Summer School movement claimed that the only reason there was worldwide publicity about the murders was that 2 of the victims were white. At the end of the Freedom Summer, some of the activists went home and started looking at different causes. Others, such as Stokely Carmichael, started to look at more radical approaches to bring about change. However, most of those involved in the Freedom Summer saw it as a success when in 1965 the Voting Rights Act was passed. Therefore, we can say that out of this, the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, and increased support from the President and people in the United States of America was one of the successes from this tragedy. This is C.L. Barber, 1977. Thank you for watching and for listening.